Look at this moment and rightly feel the weight of history. But we know exactly what to do because we have done it before and we will do it again. We use our power, we organize, mobilize, we educate, and we advocate.
That was former Vice President Kamala Harris at last night's NAACP Image Award with advice for how Americans move forward in this new chapter of American history. Joining us now is a DNC vice chair and the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. We're in the Nebraska corner. Jane Kleeb is in the building, folks. Good to see you, Madam Chairwoman.
It is good to have you, Jane. We were chatting a little bit before about your efforts to take the DNC to the next level.
Yeah.
And you've got some ideas about the role of state party chairs. As a former state party chair, I'm very curious as to what you think that role should be, and what does that look like?
You know, Chairman, right now, basically 70% of our state party chairs are volunteers. And if people at home think about your local school, if the principal was unpaid, what that would mean for your local school. So we want to see our state party chairs not only be paid, but we want to make sure that they're serving 4-year terms. Because if you're unpaid, you're basically serving about a year before you're totally burnt out. When Ken and I started serving in the ASDC, our state parties were getting $2,500 a month. That's it from the DNC. We want to get that up to $25,000 a month. But some state parties need help. They need resources. They need training. So I also want to make sure that there's goals attached to that. I want to see 25% more voter registration, 25% more candidates recruited, and 25% more county parties being built. If we don't have strong state parties, we're never going to win elections. I don't care what great message we have at the national level.
I have one follow-up on that, because going to $25,000 a month for every state party, if when just the 50 states, not including the territories, that's $1.2 million a month. Does Ken Martin have that kind of money?
We are going to raise the money because we have no other choice. Unless you have strong state parties that can recruit candidates, do partisan voter registration, make sure that the message at the national level is actually working at the local level, and vice versa, because message should actually be developed at the local level, we're never going to rebuild our party. We're never going to win elections again. So we don't have a choice but to raise that money. And to be honest, we did raise the money. But all of that money went to the D.C. consulting class, and it went to 7 battleground states, and we know that that model is broken, and so it's time for a new day at the DNC.
Jane, we've talked about infrastructure, we've talked about money. Let's talk about the messaging that you referenced. You had Senator Bernie Sanders in your state drawing big crowds. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We can defeat them. I know how much money they have. I know their ownership of the media. I know that they can buy and sell politicians. I know all of that. But this I also know, that when we stand together and not let them divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation or our religion, when we stand together, we can defeat them, and we must defeat them.
How much of that, Jane, do you think can be mainstreamed into the Democratic Party's messaging?
Look, Bernie's always had an ability to connect with the base of our party. He's always had a message of working in middle-class voters. As Democrats, we have to have an ability to be able to go into the wine bar and talk to voters there, because our voters are in wine bars, but we also have an ability to go into the dive bars. And that is the challenge of the Democratic Party, because we have voters both at the wine bar and the dive bar. And I know that we can do it, because we can talk about issues like expanding public education to include pre-K and community college. And so our kids' education is no longer just kindergarten through 12th grade. We can do things like making sure that Medicare and Medicaid is protected. We know that Trump and what Trump and Musk are doing of gutting not only the federal government, but right now they're going to be attacking basic programs that all of us as Americans rely on. That is a message that we can take directly to the American people.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting challenge because you do have the dynamics politically within the party. You've got a progressive wing that needs to be accounted for. You've got more mainstream traditional Democrats. So to Alicia's point, the messaging is going to be critical because of the diverse landscape politically across the country. You do have, though, that a lot of Democrats are frustrated and urging the idea of fighting. Just push back. Can we at least just get in a room and throw a punch? Noting across the country, anti-Trump protests and fiery town halls are flickering back to life, and polling Democratic voters are venting disapproval at congressional Democrats. And in interviews this week with voters, activists, and elected officials, many said Democrats were failing to curb Mr. Trump or offer a meaningful counter message. So as you're looking at building infrastructure among the state parties, which is vitally important, when I got to the RNC, not everybody had a website, right? So we had to drop $6 million. That's where some of that money went, by the way, in case y'all were looking, to sort of get them up to speed.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. But the other side of that coin, of that spend, that $25,000 that you want to give them, is this piece. How do you establish the grounds on which you're going to engage the opposition to win elections?
That's right. We not only have to do the infrastructure of doing more partisan voter registration, building more county parties, recruiting more candidates, we also have to have the message of fighting back and having very strong backbones. And for example, on Tuesday, we're going to be holding a press conference not outside of Don Bacon's office, which is one of the most vulnerable Republicans across the nation. We're going to go outside of Food Bank, Black Men United, and they've been serving a lot more people in North Omaha, as you know, Simone. And as Don Bacon's probably going to be voting for Trump's budget to slash food pantries and SNAP all across the country, we're going to be standing in front of Black Men United saying, as Democrats, we're not only doing donations to the food pantry, but we're making it very clear that Don Bacon is going to be the reasons why this line is not only a mile, it's going to be 2 and 3 miles long, and how we need to defeat him. So as Democrats, we need to show up not just in front of Don Bacon's office. That's been tried and tried again. We need to go into the community, be there for the community, and to deliver the message that Don Bacon is failing us.
You know what? I'm very glad, Jane, that you gave that very tangible example, because I think in this conversation about where does the party go, what happens, people forget that it is, yes, there are voters that have been, frankly, unattainable for Democrats for a while. There are voters that at one point they voted for Barack Obama, then they turned around and they voted for Donald Trump, right? And then some of those people voted for Joe Biden and they turned around and they voted for Trump again. And then there are voters that are the base of the Democratic Party consistently, black voters across the country, who many of them just stayed home in the last election. And so what you all are doing, and like, yes, people, there are black people in Omaha. I was one of them, okay? There is a need to speak to the base of the party. And what are those conversations among the state party chairs like? Because I hear a lot about how we got to reach out to some of those other folks. But what about the base?
That's right. And we, of course, need a new working class strategy and working with union folks. Absolutely. But the base voters matter. Not only black and brown voters, but women voters as well. And we have to invest in reaching black voters in particular. They have been the backbone of the Democratic Party, not only in the voters, but we have to make sure that we're hiring black leaders inside the DNC building. You can rest assured when I'm hiring regional directors at the ASDC, folks are going to be black and brown.
Jane's state party chair, y'all, is black. I just want to be very clear.
Yes, she is.
So,
Precious McKesson.
You know, Jane's doing the work.
DNC Vice Chair and Chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party, Jane Kleeb. It is so good to see you. Thank you so much.